Hello, dear starshines. Christina here with Rise of the MultiDimensional Human, and welcome to today's Lunchtime Chats. All right, so I have some interesting topics to talk about today. This was sent in by Dear Starshine, a young man who has been longing to connect with the Sasquatch. And he sent me this lovely email, and these are the questions that he's asked. And the questions are, the first is, how do I raise my vibration enough to be able to gain, to get in contact with Sasquatch people and other beings? He means other interdimensional beings. And then the second question we'll be talking about is, how do we make contact with exo-species like the Sasquatch, Devas, and nature spirits? So this is more about tools to accessing the relationship with these beings. And he goes on to say that I often dream about going into the forest and trying to connect with them, but he has no idea how. And number 3 is, when you are telepathing, do you use words and taking inside and talking inside your mind, or is it more emotions and trying to convey pictures to get across what you're trying to say? Now, I wrote down a few things here to address how you would actually go about cultivating an exo-species relationship. And I'm being very specific about what I put in here and what I leave out. And it's because it's not safe for everybody to go and try to cultivate a relationship with an interdimensional being. I mean, maybe not for the person trying to cultivate the relationship, but I also mean for the interdimensional being that they're trying to cultivate the relationship with. Okay, because interdimensional beings exist on many planes of existence, and they see who we are beyond who we think we are. They see who we are beyond our face. They can see us on a multidimensional level. That means that they can hear the tone of our soul song. They can see all the stuff in the Akasha. You know, they can see, sense, taste, know all the different datas in the Akasha and all the different lives that we've lived as non-human beings. So they're seeing us as a full multidimensional level, even though we're not aware of it. We just see our face. So maybe we had some things going on in our Akasha where we were exploring races, and we were maybe exploring the negative polarity of races. Okay, maybe you came in as some really nasty Jupiterian, you know, overlord kind of beings, or maybe you came in as some insectoid beings or some fish people or whale people. I mean, maybe you came in all these different lifetimes. Maybe you had interactions with some of these interdimensional beings in other planetary realms. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, because we're not aware of it in the here and now, but yet it's alive in our soul frequency. It's alive in the Akasha. And so when we're interacting with an interdimensional being, they can see that, they can sense that, they can feel that. Okay, and maybe, you know, maybe you had an interaction with that being over in these other places, and it's something that and it's a rift that needs healed. So it's not necessarily it's cultivating an exo-species relationship. It's not necessarily something you just like jump into haphazardly. It's important that you understand how to behave, how to hold your own energy, so it's safe for you and that other being that you're trying to create that relationship with. You're trying to build a bridge with. Okay, and very often when you are a starseed waking up to your other capacities, the other levels of who you are, you have an interdimensional, extra-dimensional beings reaching out to you already, okay, because there's an agreement for that. So, one of the keynote talks that I give a lot is the 3 keys of cultivating and accelerating your psychic intuitive abilities, okay? And one of those, the last key to that is to cultivate an exo-species relationship, because it will exponentially enhance the expansion of your consciousness. Because they can wake you up in a huge way, much more integrated and deeply than, you know, an ayahuasca ceremony or some of these other really intense awakening methods that we have on this planet. So So keep that in mind, that they may be reaching out to you, and some of them may be reaching out to you, but they're at a frequency that your relationship to it isn't so great, and it could be in a little bit of a traumatic way. When I was a child, I was getting contacted and abducted. Well, I had a lot of contact with Zeta Reticuli and some other beings, and that was not a pleasant experience. There was a lot of trauma in that for me as a kid. And it wasn't until, in my late 30s did I actually start to work all that out and release the trauma and those other things that are associated with that, so it can actually have a healthy relationship with a Zeta Reticuli, who eventually I had a in-person contact with. So it's important to understand the scope of what we're doing here when we're welcoming exo-species relationships into our reality. So let's see, and here, let me scroll through, see if there's any questions. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, guys, if you have any questions or comments that you want to mention about this, I will totally, I'll check in every few minutes. Okay, Tammy says, can you repeat what you said about the plant medicine and using it? Okay, so, all right, so we had a fallen consciousness, right? But there were orders, there were lineages designated on past the Akashic level, on a really high level, were designated as the keepers of teaching, so humanity can awaken again. And many of those lineages and keepers to this day are with the indigenous elders. Not all of them, but many of them. And the indigenous elders over the generations, right, have cultivated techniques, have cultivated ceremonies, have cultivated relationships with plant beings to help humans crack open out of their shell and awaken to other levels of their being. So plant medicine is was often used for stuff like this. It's to crack a person out of who they think they are, out of the reality of what they think is real, and open them up to something else. And so that was a mode that was the mode that was most commonly offered to people who were saying yes to their awakening. So you have like San Pedro and ayahuasca and psilocybin mushrooms, and there's a toad medicine. There's a few different kinds of toad medicine. Some of them it's the liquid that they excrete, and others it's another part of the toad. So anyway, there's lots of different ways. And the way they wake you up, the frequency that they use to wake you up is very different from each other. Like ayahuasca is very different than toad, and toad is very different than mushrooms, okay? Because it's the consciousness of that being that the bridge is being built with in order to wake you up. Okay, so it's the consciousness of the toad people, okay, that is that chemistry is what is working inside of you to open you up. Or ayahuasca, which is called the vine of the dead, which is like commonly known as the bridge to the world on the other side. So the frequency of those awakening pieces is really essential to your relationship to them, and the way your awakening is going to be, either intense or really graceful. Okay, so when cultivating a relationship with exo-species, that very same thing is in place. So when you cultivate a relationship with exo-species, they are hyperdimensional. They have access to levels that you don't necessarily have access to yet. Not that you can't, because all humans have these, but we have these, we're inside of all these shells of who we think we are, all these matrices of blindness, and so we don't necessarily have that access until we build that relationship. So if you are getting awoke to the universal mind by a Sasquatch, right? So their presence with you, they're very careful in how they present themselves with you. So very compassionate beings, the higher level ones. There's some that have been corrupted in their DNA that's a little less than that, but we'll talk about that later. So if they are awakening you, that Sasquatch, similar to like if you're using plant medicine, but instead it's a being like this, you are going through their frequency, their realms of frequency. So they're awakening you with their particular realms. And if you have lifetimes as being a Sasquatch, or you have memories, or maybe you have Sasquatch DNA because there was some inbreeding back, intermingling way back in the history of your lineage, it's going to wake up those genes, and those genes are going to, and you're going to have to deal with the shadows that come up with that, because there's guaranteed there's some kind of wounding and trauma involved with all that. So last summer, I was initiated by the Sasquatch into their connection to the universal mind lattice. And it was really intense. It was like tripping. I was tripping hard. It was like someone actually gave me a substance that made me trip, you know, but really it was just the Sasquatch was coming into my field, and, you know, because we're empathic, we naturally resonate with that. And I started to, he started taking me into the universal mind lattice as they relate to it. Before that, I was connected to the universal mind lattice, but as, you know, the way I built that bridge, you know, and my guides and the different Pleiadian and, you know, all the different keepers that have been working with humanity a long time kind of bridge. So it was a very different flavor, and I learned very different things from that. A lot of downloads came from that. It took a while to digest them, but a lot came out of that. So I hope I covered the part about the plant medicine more broadly, so it's understood. All right, so let me get to how do you cultivate this relationship? Get to the actual nitty-gritty of how. Okay, there's a few things that are very important to keep in mind, and I wrote them on the board so you guys can write them down and play with these. So number one is your intention. Biggest thing, your intention. Now, if you are going out, you want to meet a Sasquatch just because you want to prove that they're real, okay, that is probably not going to come out, bring much fruition. That's not going to bring much to you, because you're coming from an ego-based state. You're coming from the who you think you are state, which is like a 3D human, and this is the reality, that's the truth, you know. So if you're, you know, trying to make contact just to prove that they're real, who you're going to share that information with could prove dangerous for the Sasquatch. So they're aware of this, and they're not going to show up for you. But the Sasquatch in particular are extremely, let's say, strong in their intention of reaching out to as many humans as they can to help awaken humanity. So they are particularly special because they are reaching out to us as much as humans are reaching out to them. Okay, so if your intention is pure, if it's a pure intention, as in you truly know in your heart space that they exist and there's something there to be offered between you, and there's a yes in your heart space, then that's an intention it's going to happen, you know, and it'll be gentle. Usually it's gentle. I say usually because sometimes, you know, we have an agreement for it to not be gentle, and you know, that is what it is. So your intention is huge. And this also goes for those of you out there that are facilitating contact of Sasquatch with humans with Sasquatch, you know, that the intention of the group, of the people of the group is important, but also your particular intention. So once those are harmonized, and then it's almost, you know, you're pretty much guaranteed that they're going to come in contact in some way. Most Sasquatch stay a significant distance away from humans. And I'll explain why in a minute. So they usually keep their distance, and they'll start you off with maybe flashes in the corner of your eye, or depending on how psychically sensitive you are, they might be able to tap into you know, into the psychic channels you have open and communicate that way. And this is like all right, there's a term that's used a lot in Sasquatch circles. They call it mind speak, and this is the number two thing that's important when it comes to communicating with Sasquatch. Okay, so we have different brain waves, and we have alpha, beta, theta, delta. You know, we have these different brain waves, and different brain waves are an indication of different states of consciousness that you're living in. So if you are a human being in a beta consciousness, which means you are very into the linear, into the I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm making that happen, I'm manifesting that, and you're in a very linear way of thought like this, the mind speak might not be very comfortable for you, because they're actually needing to shift your beta brain waves into a more theta state. And the theta state is more in the dream realm. It's more being outside of time and being in a completely receptive mode. Now, when you're in theta state, magic, that's where the magic happens in your life. This is where people create miracles, is because they're in that theta state field, and they are able to pull things out of the infinite potential and bring it forward into the 3D. Now, when I say they are doing it, their ego mind is not doing it, because once you go into ego mind, you're back into beta. Okay, it is their inner level, their inner essence of being expressing through them and bringing things through. And the theta state is the field that allows that to happen. So when mind speak is going on, the more comfortable your system is with theta state, the better. Then it can just be like a fluid exchange of thoughts like this, and it's not actually talking, though we will translate the transference of those frequencies into words. Our subconscious will do that for us, so we can have some understanding about what's going on. So it's not like a talk communication using words kind of thing, though they can use words. And those are ones that are extremely skilled at bridging to even more denser levels of existence. And that's why a lot of times it's usually an elder Sasquatch that's making that happen. Now, the more fluid you are in between your brainwave frequencies, you can have access, or many more, a more broad spectrum, let's say, of interdimensional beings can access you and communicate with you, okay? And when you can go in and out real fluidly between beta and theta, or even live in the theta, you have beings talking to you all the time. When you're walking through the woods, you can feel the trees knowing that you're there. You can feel the birds watching you. You know what I mean? You can sense the devas and the nature spirits and stuff like this around you. So so the deeper you go into that theta state, the more miraculous this reality becomes, because you can hear it, you can see it, you can see the consciousness of the animals, you can see the consciousness of the plants. But when we're in beta, the linear, the blinders are very thick. So there's only certain beings that have the capability to reach you when you're in that frequency, okay? When those are the dominant brainwave frequencies going on. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And I'll talk about the tools and how to cultivate the brainwave frequencies, okay? I'll do that in a little bit. And then number 3, when let's say shit's getting real, being able to let go of who you think you are is very, very important. The more identity you can let go of, the more keen and tuned your psychic intuitive senses become. Being able to let go of you, who you think you are, even you identifying yourself as a human being, being able to let that go more and more and more and more broadens those lenses of perception more and more and more, and it becomes easier for you guys to communicate. And not only becomes easier for you to communicate and be transparent like this, it's easier for them to handle your energy. It's easier for the interdimensional beings on the other side to be with you in your energy. So hopefully this is making sense what I'm saying, guys. Let me check in with, a lot more people here. Let me go back to, I scrolled down too fast. Hold on. I'm going to say hi to everybody. All right, Tammy, let me know if that was helpful with the plant medicine. Hi, Missy, welcome. Andy, welcome. And Hody, welcome, welcome, darling. Christy says, very good mind speak description. Oh, thank you, darling. Hey. So, all right, so let's go on to, where am I at? Okay, let's go on to some of the tools. Now, there's more tools in this, but I'm mentioning these ones specifically, and I'm leaving out the other ones for a purpose, okay? I know there's more tools in this, but this is, let me first explain. We are coming out of a paradigm, one paradigm into a new paradigm. And in order to do that, we have to understand where we come from, and we have roots. We have the teachings of the elders that kept the awakening teachings alive, in the lineages and stuff like this. But the way that they kept those transmissions alive, those levels of consciousness alive, are not the ways that we, the next generation going into the new paradigm, are to do it. Okay, so some of the old paradigm ways, not that they're not effective, they are, until eventually you transcend them, okay? And some of the old paradigm ways are things like rituals and ceremony, okay? There's a very specific kind of formula that each tradition has to a ritual and a ceremony. And in the most generic terms, it's usually calling on the 4 directions, and honoring the earth and honoring the sky and the doorway within, like stuff like this. And then some have specific beings that are associated with the directions. Some have specific prayers and offerings are meant to go to each of the directions. And this is effective, like I said, but it's old paradigm. It was the way that our elders, that was the methods that they had to break out of the density and bring and cultivate a hyperdimensional space so they can do the ceremonial work that they're doing. Now, all of us, I'm sure here in this group can agree, the veils have been lifting exponentially at great speed, right? So we're not in the same kind of densities that our elders were in. So we don't necessarily need to go and it's good to know those ceremonies, to know, to connect with the elementals and stuff like that. It's very good to connect in those ways. But once you do, very often your frequency is at a place where you go right beyond that. You can step right past that, okay? So, and that's not a dig on keepers of the old ways, because those are really important too. Everybody, we are all in this together and we all have our roles. So it's most important to listen to your soul, listen to your heart space and play the role that your heart wants you to play. Laura, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. Oh, and the other thing that I'm leaving out is the building of altars, doing altar offerings. Altar offerings are another way that that was really essential to creating and maintaining relationship with interdimensional beings, especially ones that were super high in frequency, because it was really dangerous for a human to come even in a gaze of one of those beings. So altars is another way to create a hyperdimensional realm, a hyperdimensional field for access with these other beings. So I'm leaving those out for a reason. And if those work for you and you love that, that's fine. But I also want to invite you that in this acceleration, we get to a place and it works for us, but there's always more. There's always more. There's never a destination. There's always more. You can always go deeper, and it's being offered to us in a very clear way if we are open to being with that. Okay. So let me get to the tools. Some kind of focusing meditation is highly encouraged. Now, a meditation, there's all different kinds of meditations. There's gazillions of them. I would encourage a meditation that keeps you in the present, a meditation meditations that help you cultivate focus, and meditations that help you detach from mind. Those are the kinds of meditations I would encourage the most. Those are the ones, because those are 3 skills that you really need to have, because when energy's going crazy, if you can't focus and you don't have control of your mind thoughts, you're going to go off into a reel. And like I said earlier, it's not safe for you to be in that state, because when you're in that state, it's very chaotic. And things can happen, beings can, see this, other beings see that going on, and they'll take advantage of that opportunity. So you want to have certain tools like this in place. My favorite meditation is listening to the inner rhythms, because it does all of those 3 things at once. And it's really powerful to bringing you deeper into your body and bringing you more solid into the present moment. And the inner rhythms is, you have lots of rhythms within the body. There's dozens upon dozens of rhythms, but the primary rhythms is first listening to the breath, and then connecting the breath with the heartbeat, listening to the heartbeat, and then connecting those rhythms to your solar plexus, and listening to those rhythms come together and be harmonious, and then connect those rhythms with the perineum. And once all those rhythms synchronize, you have shifted your frequency in a very significant way. You've not only stimulated the parasympathetic response, but you've also quickly shifted from beta brainwaves into theta brainwaves. Okay. And once those rhythms are the predominant frequency in your awareness, you very quickly forget who you think you are, because you're in this, I want to say a static bliss state, but very present state, a loving present state. And when you're in this, it's really clear when you start to when you start to ooze out of your body. Okay. Sometimes we shoot out of our eyes. Sometimes something will happen that triggers a subconscious trauma, and boom, we take out the back. Now, when you are in tune with your rhythms, you are instantly aware that your energy is going somewhere that's not here. So this meditation of the inner rhythms is my absolute favorite for those reasons I just mentioned. And then I put stilling the mind. Just so if the rhythms meditation, like say you can't really hear your heartbeat, or it's a real struggle, you can start off with a meditation that allows you to practice stilling your mind, as in not trying to control your mind, but getting out from under the control of your mind. Okay, because really what in the work that I do, most of our mind thoughts are not our thoughts. They're actually thoughts and programs that have been pushed into our energy by our parents, by our friends, by our family, by society, by our teachers, and then there's also a large chunk of them that are actually entities that are alive inside of us, but don't know that they're inside of us. And their mind thoughts and their emotions and even their illnesses, we take on because we think that it's us when it's actually not. I've had many experiences where we've extracted an entity or 3 or 4 or more, and immediately afterward, the person reports that the usual thoughts going in their head are not there. And then I'll see them a few days later and they're like, those thoughts for real are completely gone, you know? And it was because it wasn't their thoughts. It was the thoughts of the energies and entities that were living inside of them. So be gentle with yourself. Your mind thoughts are not necessarily you. And the more you can resonate with that as the truth, the easier it is to let them go. And the easier it is, the field around, the quieter and calmer the field is around you, and the more likely you are to notice another being reaching out for you for contact, for communication. Because when we're really busy in the wind, think of it like water, you know, a still lake. When the lake is completely still in a landscape, you can notice anything that's coming in. The slightest little ripple washes through the water, and you can see a completely clear reflection of the landscapes, the above sea level landscapes and the sky above in the water. Okay, now mind thoughts disturb the water, and of course motions do too, but mind thoughts go, it's like a kid splashing in the water, and you can't see anything, and you don't notice if there's something else making a ripple in the water either. So this is a great example of, this is a great analogy to the importance of having the calmness and stillness around you, because there's a lot of people that have beings reaching out to them to communicate with them, but they can't hear them communicating with them because they're in their mind thoughts all the time, you know. And it's like the more still you are, the more subtle, the more awareness you have to the subtleties that are coming up into your field. You'll notice that there's edges all over, you'll notice that there's a being standing at the edge of your field waiting for you to notice them. You know, this is what happens when you are calm and quiet inside. And then you'll notice, I mean, I'll notice just walking the dog, you know, I'll have this stillness around me, and then there'll be like this little something, just something, I don't know what it is. It's just at the edge of my field. And as soon as I look and say, whoa, hey, hi, you know, then they'll come into their full form and who they are and what they want. And then, you know, now beings will approach me because they know it's safe to approach me, okay? Because I'm very compassionate with all the beings that come to me, so I don't ever attack anything. But if you're in a belief system of who you think you are, you know, and you feel something on the edge, you'll take that as, oftentimes people will take that as a hostile being trying to invade them or something, because it's triggering their own trauma story. Okay, so it's not safe for that being anymore. You know, they're gonna dash real fast. If you have a really strong reaction to their presence when they come into your field. Because hyperdimensionally, every thought that you have has a ripple effect and affects the beings that are involved with that thought. So if you have a lot of negative thoughts about beings, or a lot of traumatic thoughts or victim thoughts about beings, things that you don't understand, you're actually attacking that being on an interdimensional plane that you're not aware of. So humans are really dangerous for interdimensional beings to, you know, have contact with. Now, before I get to these other tools, or no, I'm going to do these other tools. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the DNA corruption that's happened to some of the interdimensional beings. So, all right, so your next tool, which is really wonderful practice, is utilizing your dream time. Now, dream time, you are in your hyperdimensional state, and you can go anywhere, anywhere in all of the multiverses in dream time. Now, many stay within a particular spectrum of reality in their dream time. But if you really want to, if you have a heart call to connect with interdimensional beings, whether they be fairies or, I don't know, in the ascended realms, Sasquatch or Yeti or beetle people or ant people or, you know, or tree people, you know, if there's, I mean, any yes inside of your heart that is in your awareness that you know that you really want to connect with, you can set that intention and utilize your dream time. Okay. Now, a lot of people just kind of like, you know, I don't dream or I do dream, you know, they don't necessarily understand how they can set the stage for the dream time. Okay. And how this works is it's your yes and your focus. Okay, it's your yes and your focus, and you are acknowledging everything that comes to you. When you're in those states, then the doorways will open very quickly. So say if you're somebody who doesn't remember their dreams, but this dream time thing, you want to try it, right? So what I suggest is that you actually make a little bath ritual or some kind of focus ritual go on before you go to bed. So you are setting yourself up and honoring dream time as a sacred time, and you're doing that as a habit. So for example, most nights, not every night, but most nights, I take a bath, I soak in the tub with either herbs or salt or oils or whatever, and I meditate in the tub, and I usually do a lot of healing, clearing work while I'm in an altered state in the water. Now I go straight from the tub, I don't dry off or anything, I just kind of wrap myself up in towels, I go straight from the tub and boom, I'm in bed, and I instantly fall asleep and go into dream time. It's like, so the time that I get out of the bathtub and I make it to the bed, it's like less than 2 minutes, you know? So it's like, and this is the system that works for me. So you figure out what works for you. If you don't like that, worry about it. Maybe it's a meditation thing, but whatever it is, you're not on non-natural frequencies. So these are synthetic frequencies, this technologies, the computers, the TV, the a lot of the human realm, who you think you are, the books you're reading, you know, all this stuff. It's like, they're artificial frequencies on top of the natural rhythms. So what I'm doing with that whole bath time, it's like I'm going very deep into those natural rhythms. I'm completely unplugging from all the synthetic rhythms that are built on top. And I'm deep in the natural rhythms, and then boom, I go to bed and I'm instantly asleep. So it's like I'm that close. I'm very close to the threshold already. So whatever your exercise is, whatever the thing is that you want to do to prepare for bedtime, it's about going back to the natural rhythms. So you're not listening to you're not listening to sound technology to calm the mind. You're not watching a movie. You're not reading the book. You're not engaging your intellectual mind. You're doing something else, either maybe some gentle yoga or meditation, or you're sitting with plants. Oh, that's another thing I love to do. You can actually surround yourself in a circle of plants, set up in a certain way, in a certain kind of ratio, and it creates a really strong biofield, and you can sit and commune with the plants that are in your house. They have a natural rhythm, and they actually know you because they live with you. You know what I mean? So they're a conscious being that's living with you. So that's that's a relationship you can cultivate and utilize to help bring you more in tune to receive dream time. So things like this. So, and when you set your intention in the dream time, you're calling on in your heart space, you're calling forward on the one that you want to connect. And maybe the one that comes forward from your heart space isn't the one you had in your mind, but whoever it is that comes from your heart space that you want to connect with, that is what you hold in your intention as you fall asleep. Sometimes I do clearing work on myself and I fall asleep while I'm doing clearing work, and then I'll dream about the frequencies that I'm addressing that I was addressing in that clearing work. So that too also happens. So you can utilize dream time. Now, remembering dreams or not remembering dreams doesn't lessen the impact of the dream. It doesn't lessen the impact of what happened in the dream. Eventually, when your conscious mind is ready and your higher levels are saying, yes, it's time, those dream time memories will start to come up naturally. So don't beat yourself up that, you don't remember your dreams. You are interacting in this other level, in this other state that maybe your conscious mind isn't aware of yet. Eventually it does come forward into the conscious mind. It just takes time. It takes time because our conscious mind is usually living in the beta frequencies, and it takes an adjustment to convert into the theta. So when you are able to bring the theta realms of reality into your conscious mind, then that's the place where you're going to start remembering your dreams a lot more. All right, let's see what else I have. I have a couple comments in here. All right, Tammy Lee says, all right, I thank you for the plant medicine, very new to me. I tried some for the first time in the last couple weeks during sacred ceremonies and continue to unwind what came to me during these experiences. Oh yeah, if you have a good facilitator, it may take a decade. They were able to take you to a place that will take you years to digest the lessons. All right, Hody says, this is so interesting. I'm not an elder, but I'm an older. Oh, well, darling, I think that counts. First wave, yes. I worked with ceremony and altars. I've heard Sasquatch in my neighborhood, and I believe he's a protector as I am a portal keeper. Yeah, right, totally. Love learning these new ways to connect faster and better. Wow, thank you, Hody, for that. Oh, Haley, darling, mwah. Nice to see you, sweetie. Okay, so, and the other half is the altered states. So if you can allow yourself to go into an altered state, which is easier than many people realize, that is also a really great tool to help make your brainwaves, make you more flexible in your brainwaves going from beta to theta. And that is like, say if you're ever sitting in nature and you kind of go off in thought, then all of a sudden you kind of like just go somewhere, you know, and then and you don't realize you went somewhere until you come back and you're like, whoa, where'd I just go? Okay, that's an example of going into an altered state. Now that's very easy to do in nature, but when you're in maybe your home, you know, there's some busy energy in the home, or you don't have a particular spot dedicated to meditating, it may be a little bit more difficult to allow yourself to go to the altered state. It doesn't mean it's not accessible. It's just more difficult because of the fields that are around you have you in a habitual way of being, right? So the more you practice of allowing yourself to go in and out of altered states at will, the more information, the more clear of a conduit or receptacle you are for these different frequencies to drop in. And I tie that in with dream time because to me it's a very similar kind of thing. All right, and the last piece, and this is the easiest one, and I think one of my most favorite, because it doesn't matter. This last tool is awesome because it doesn't matter necessarily how adept you are at switching brainwave frequencies or how much you can step out of who you think you are. The intention is still there, but these other two pieces aren't that big of a deal yet, and that is using glyphs. Now, I learned this from dear Brian Bland, and he is the founder of the Spiritual Sasquatch group. And I met him up at the Sasquatch conference last summer, and I never knew about glyphs until I started reading some of the things he was putting out, and then it struck me of like, wow, this is genius. So what he started to do was create a communication, a way of communication with glyphs. So he lives in nature and goes out for walks a lot, and he would notice that there's, you know, these particular formations. So Sasquatch mark their territory with trees, and they do really kind of interesting formations where it's kind of like, you know, you have a sense it's not natural, but then they also kind of like make sand paintings or glyphs on the ground to communicate. So with him, he noticed that there was these peeled sticks and they're always arranged in a particular kind of way. And he began recognizing that some formations were indicating Sasquatch from one tribe, and other formations were indicating they're Sasquatch from another tribe, or specific identities of a Sasquatch being, like this. So he decided to make his own glyph to represent him. So he did that, and when he returned to the spot later, and I don't know if it was the next day or a week later or whatever, they used his glyph in conjunction with their glyph of who was representing their tribe and stuff like this. So that was like a huge epiphany to me of like, what a brilliant way to create a bridge of communication is through these glyphs. So I asked the Sasquatch about that. You know, I was really curious about the glyphs because the people that I have listened to that use these glyphs as communication, as soon as they look at the glyph, they immediately know that it was left for them. You know what I mean? There's no question in their mind. Immediately, their inner knowing is like, yes, that was left for me. Now, maybe their mind thoughts might get kind of, you know, might go on a reel and start to doubt and get confused. But the initial moment of recognizing it, boom, that's for me. I totally, you know, like that. And so I asked the Sasquatch about this, and what they showed me was really cool. So these glyphs, because trees are part of the natural rhythm, and even when a stick is broken off a tree, it still has a frequency. It still is embodying a rhythm. Okay, and so they are a very good receptor to your energy, to your intention. Okay, so you can actually, whatever you're thinking and feeling while you're peeling the stick, that energy is going to infuse into the stick. okay? So if you are peeling the stick, like, you know, in gratitude and love, and I'm so excited to build this relationship with these beings, you know, or in that you're in that kind of state, and then you arrange them in a particular way for a particular purpose, all of that is imprinted in the rhythms of that stick, the frequency of those sticks. So when the Sasquatch come across, so you leave, right? You leave, you're no longer in the field, and they come across this glyph, they are seeing you in your purest intentions. They're seeing you in your purest frequencies. They are not experiencing, so the parts where I was saying was really difficult for Sasquatch to be with humans because of, you know, a lot of the trauma drama that we got going on, that's no longer a factor for them. So this is actually a preferred level of a way of communication specifically to Sasquatch. Now the beetle people and the ant people and the other beings, they don't communicate that way, but they do, well, anyway, I'll go off on that in a minute. So let me finish this thought. So I asked the Sasquatch about this, and they gave me a dream. And the dream was I was walking through the woods, and I was walking through the woods as a blonde Sasquatch, go figure, you know, so I'm this giant blonde Sasquatch, and I looked down, and it almost looked like a Fibonacci spiral made with a whole bunch of sticks. It was completely filled in, you know, each stick was like a rung in the spiral, in the Fibonacci spiral. And as soon as I looked at it, I looked up, and there was other Sasquatch there, and then I looked down again, and the glyph started to move and shift, and it opened up into a portal. And then I recognized just how effective, just how much we can do with these glyphs. They aren't, so there's that level of communication, like I was just saying, but they're actually ways to open up portals to connect with these other beings, with these, with the Sasquatch beings, but other beings. When I'm saying other beings, I mean other beings of inner earth. So you can actually, there's glyphs that allow you to open up portals to access the inner earth realms, okay? You can also create glyphs to help bring healing to a particular Sasquatch tribe or to a particular Sasquatch, and I need to talk about this. Now, in the Sasquatch Speak movie, I did tell this story, but I changed it a lot because there was a lot of things that I could not say in that documentary. Now, this is a closed group, and I can choose who comes in here. So, I mean, this is like a safe container that I make so I can talk about things on this level, right? And what it was there was a lot more beings there besides just the Sasquatch. Now, the different races that I've had in contact with, there's a lot. And I was with a group of multidimensionals, and we were working with, there was lots of beings coming forward. So it's not just, there was the Sasquatch and the Yeti and the beetle people and the ant people. The reptilians were coming in really hardcore, and so were the really low-level drones, the low-level drones of the like different Zeta Reticuli and sectoid races. So there was like a lot of dark and light going back and forth. So, and what was shown to us was the Sasquatch were showing how their children, many of their people were kidnapped, were taken into the subterranean tunnels by certain beings of the Draco, you know, the Alpha Draconis lineage, and certain insectoids. Not all. Most insectoids, by the way, are very benevolent, amazing levels of consciousness. But like everything else, a segment of them have had a fallen consciousness too. So it's like there's no one race that's good, bad, right, or wrong. You know, it's all about your frequency. It's all about your frequency, where you are in your consciousness. So they were showing us how their children and several of their people of their tribes were taken and they were doing genetic manipulation on them deep in these subterranean tunnels. And they're here in Colorado, these tunnels in the mountains, okay? And what they were showing us was full sensory data. We got to experience the torture ourselves, right? And the reason why they did that was to trigger a memory, a deep soul memory of who we were, not all of us, but certain people in the group, who they were as a being coming here as a fallen consciousness from Alpha Draconis, or who another person was as a beetle person as a fallen consciousness, okay? Now the beetle people have had huge trauma happen, and that trauma directly is in direct connection to the fall of consciousness of humanity. Because if you go back to the ancient teachings of Atlantis that are the vestiges in ancient Egypt, okay, that, you know, they kind of revived that culture in ancient Egypt, you have to pass through the scarab in order to return to the sun and be an awakened God-man, awakened Pharaoh again, okay? So that beetle consciousness is an essential basement level consciousness to man's access to immortality, to their multidimensional being, to living, you know, to living as living in the frequency of how we were originally created, okay? So they were showing us how there are DNA strands of Sasquatch that have been corrupted with trauma and other sorts of things, and they were showing us how it happened and who in the different roles that the people in our party had in that event. Okay, so some of us, and so what happened was like, so the DNA got corrupted with this trauma drama of certain tribes of the Sasquatch, certain members of the Sasquatch community, and they were so we'll just say distorted and damaged, they couldn't return home. They couldn't return home to their tribe, which deepened the wounding. Okay, and so there was like another level of Sasquatch that was now roaming the earth, that they had a diminished capacity. Their DNA dance was reduced, and this is where you get the ones that are really hostile and dangerous. There's some that kill animals and eat meat. There's some that have killed humans. I mean, sometimes it's because they were cornered and the humans were being ignorant, stupid humans. But there's been reports up in Tibet and stuff of human contact, and they're wiping out a whole camp, and it's like because this particular trauma, it stunted their DNA dance, and now they're locked into lower level frequencies. Okay, so when I told that story of us walking in the woods, we were walking with many beings. It wasn't just a Sasquatch, but we happened to notice that we're in Sasquatch territory when we're coming in. So when they came forward, they were showing us how many of the Sasquatch that were not corrupted in their DNA were still disturbed about what was going on, because their children, grandchildren, their people were being taken. So what they decided to do was kidnap the reptilians, the reptilians that were doing this, trapping them in certain realms, so they couldn't, do any more damage. The only thing what that did was trap them in a realm of darkness. So it actually contributed to the holding them in darkness consciousness. So when I came, so one of the things that they wanted me to do was to release the Dracos, was go into those chambers, find them, and set them free, So when I told the story of my friend dropping to the ground and getting tortured as if she was a Sasquatch, that's really what was happening. She went instantly into the memory of being a young Sasquatch youngster being kidnapped, and they were all being kept in these interdimensional cages, and this torture thing was going on. Now, the torture thing wasn't just to create pain. The whole idea was to instill trauma so their DNA dance would get hindered. This is like what I was saying in the very beginning of the talk, that this is how the fall of consciousness is engineered. It's like you bring in really dense energy, so the DNA dance, so certain genes shut down and the DNA dance becomes hindered, and you don't have access to all of your capacities. Well, that same thing was done to the Sasquatch in certain terms, and it's not easy. It was very dangerous for beings to do this with the Sasquatch, so there weren't a lot of that. It definitely happened more often to humans than it did to Sasquatch beings, but there are still Sasquatch beings to this day that are in that hindered, that are in that hindered DNA space, and those are the ones that people like me get called to communicate with, because we can help heal that, and they can see it in our field. They can see all the soul's journey and all the different unification levels that we've done for ourselves. You know what I mean? With all the beings that we've unified, because I work with many beings, not just Sasquatch, and they're actually they will welcome ones that are normally hostile to humans beings, will welcome multidimensionals like me into the field, because they know that we can help. And usually some of the other elders are with us, or watching over us when we go and do this. So just to be real with that story, because I had a couple people who were there that heard my recount of the story, and they're like, "Why did you tell the story like that? It's like you left out like everything. It felt like it wasn't even accurate anymore." And it was because I wasn't appropriate for me to talk about the reptilians and the beetle people and the ant people and stuff like this in that particular setting. The things that I was saying in my interview was already pushing the boundaries of the people that were listening. So I was keeping it, calm, keeping it in a safe place. All right, how do you suggest working with the children? This is Tammy again. How do you suggest working with children with their dream time? My daughter Cheyenne, age 7, called me yesterday saying she had a nightmare. All right, well, number one, you validate the dreams that they tell you. Like, all right, so nightmares. This is common for kids, and I'm running out of time. I'm so sorry, because this is important what you're saying here. Nightmares are really important because, all right, human exchanges are really sloppy. Okay. People push their energy all the time. they push their energy with good intention, and they push their energy with not so good intention, and everything in between. And especially with parents and kids, parents push their, push their love, push what they think they should be doing that makes them a good parent, and different ideas. They push things into their kids because kids, they're told they're wrong a lot, and this is the right way to do it. So when kids are having nightmares, very often they are feeling unsafe because there's energies coming into their field, and it's being expressed to them through the nightmare. Okay, so what's important is showing them methods on how to work through the dream, how to work the energy of the dream. And it's really easy for kids to do because they love to play. And this is something called a sacred drama. Okay, so what you could do is like ask her about the different parts of the dream. Find out, get who all the ones in the dream are, right? Maybe there's just her and the scary monster like this. So you play her, you say, okay, well, let's play a game. I'll be you in the scary monster, okay, and you let her play the scary monster. So it's like you are playing the kid and she's playing the scary monster. Now, by doing that with the intention of working at the energy of the dream, she can start to see through the eyes of the scary monster, and you will start to see through her eyes as the frightened child. And then this is the most important thing about exo-species relationship as well. What happens is that you guys will get a glimpse, an understanding, connection, and how it feels. You guys will immediately, once this starts, you start going to the theta, getting out of the beta into the theta, into the realm of imagination and play, then you will start to understand how each other feels. And this is the piece for exo-species relationship. Now, if you have to do a lot of ritual and ceremony and offerings to beings in order to be friends with them, it's because you're not connecting with them on all the levels that you can connect with them. Okay, when you can actually just think of a being, remember them, and when you guys meet, you immediately understand each other. They understand you, and you understand them because you're that clear and transparent, and there's a bridge of love between you. You instantly understand each other, and it's like it's a deep connection. Never do you have to offer ceremony or ritual. Never do you have to make any offerings to them anymore. Because they know you and you know them on such a deep level. You think of them and they will come forward. Okay, they think of you and you will get pulled to them like that. So it's like an instant connection and interconnectedness, and the kinship is there immediately. Now I'm not saying don't do ritual and ceremony and offerings, because you're at that place until you're not. That is the way that our elders have taught us how to connect in a respectful way to these beings. Okay, so this is important until you transcend it. But what I'm offering is that, yes, this is a way, and there's more. Okay, so same thing with this dream. You can play the sacred drama of the dream with her, and then in that the energy will move, and then it will get flushed out really what's going on. It could be that she just needs to cry because she felt overpowered in one moment of, in a moment that happened earlier that week. It could be something as simple as that. But what's most important is that we honor dream time with them. When they tell us, we listen. We let them know that that was important that they shared, and that you are grateful that they were willing to share that with you, and that you're with them. You are going to help them. You're going to, if they want that, you are going to help them with this. You're going to, and that it was important that it happened. So that's how I would approach that, darling Tammy. Okay, Serge, welcome. Sergey, I'm sorry I said your name. I'm Sergey, welcome. Ginger, Zara. Oh my gosh, darlings, hi. A bunch of people jumped in. Okay, Hody says, I was visited by an indigenous subterranean reptilian. Ooh, nice. They're pretty cool creatures usually. She brought her children to meet me. I was in that state right before sleep. My cat and dog got on alert. How can I help them find comfortable so I can continue this communication? Oh, for the cats and the dogs, right? Okay. Well, you talk with the cats and the dogs, and you let them know that you're inviting beings to come and connect with you. Okay. And you also let them know that it's okay. And here's the thing about cats and dogs. All right. They live with us. They love us. We're like their family, right? And there's a natural inclination to protect. I'm sorry, I know I'm going over, but this is a really great piece that she brings up, that Hody brings up. So their natural inclination is to protect or alert and stuff like this. So when beings are coming that that perhaps trigger a nervous system, or maybe when we're in a really vulnerable state and there's other beings coming into this space, that our pets have a, you know, they want to alert us. They want to alert us that something's coming, you know? So it's like there's a little bit of a protection thing. That's something that happens a lot. Now, my dog, she doesn't do that anymore. She just kind of like, you know, she just perks up and is alert and is, you know, and is really chill. So, but that's because I've talked with her and I invite her into certain energy medicine sessions that I do. So she's kind of like a trained dog. So it's a matter of talking with your cats and dogs and just kind of retraining their relationship. Let them know that, you know, it's, their roles are their roles and you love them for everything that they're doing. And there's these beings coming forward and, you know, and it's okay. Even if they look scary or are scary, you know, it's okay. It's okay. And this is what I mean about, you know, beings know it's safe to approach me. I've had some really, really dark, nasty beings come, and never is it in the sense of an attack. It's always, they always wanted my attention. They always want my presence because they want to connect about something. And it's usually it's to help them wake up. It's to help them get the parts of them that's stuck in darkness, to help or liberate them from that so they can come back home to the true light that they are, you know. So good, bad, right, or wrong, we need to leave all that out of our belief system when we're going into the extra dimensional realms and communicating with these beings. Because there's a lot of people that I know that by default, they think all reptilians are bad, and that's not true. The reptilians that are native to this planet are these amazing creatures. Like you were saying, Hody, they're amazing creatures, and they have so much to offer us. But if we are buying into certain belief systems or different ideas in the disclosure movement about evil ones this and, you know, mantids that, you know, that's going to completely distort the connection, and we won't be able to cultivate a true healthy interdimensional connection with them. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Thank you for that, darling. So this is a big piece to it. So wow, I had a lot to fit in here. Hopefully I answered all those questions, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody contributing into this conversation. I know this is not this is not in the usual, you know, kind of thing that people talk about. A lot of people only talk about their exo-species or ET experiences with other ET experiencers, but it's more and more the veils are being revealed, and they're revealing things to us. And we have our young ones, like Tammy was indicating, our young ones are seeing these things. They're engaged. They don't have the same kind of blinders, and we are on this together, and we need to support each other in this. So that means we need to start sharing our stories. So the mainstream idea of what reality isn't the predominant reality that these kids are exposed to. Okay, it's like I did just did a lovely conversation with Jedi Hill, and he had elder support when he was growing up. I didn't, right? So it's like he had a wonderful support system to help him process these experiences, and I didn't. So instead, I kept it all bottled up inside and just secretly thought that I was a complete whack job. You know what I mean? And I created this face that I brought to the world, which eventually everything fell apart, of course. But you know, it's like, if I had just one person I could have talked about this with and didn't look at me like I was crazy, that would have meant the world to me. I would have never tried to die when I was 19 years old. I would never have attempted that, you know? So it's important for us to speak out. Speak out, please. Share your stories with your kids, with your grandkids. My kids, they know the stories. Nothing shakes them anymore. Yay, I'm so glad about that. But they also don't tell their friends, you know. But in time, as it's ready, it will come forward. And I want to take the momentum away from the disclosure movement, because there's so many lies in that movement. There's so many lies going on, and there's all kinds of weird interdimensional perpetuation and black magic stuff and all that. And it's like, it just irks me that they have most people's attention. It really does, because so much of it is not true. Hello, Ginger. Hello, darling. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to, thank you, Hody, for that. Thank you. I do have to go now. I went way over, but thank you, everybody, for being here and for being a part of the conversation. If there's anything that you ever want me to talk about, any questions or topics or anything you want to bring forward, message me. You can PM me at Lightbody Therapeutics, or if you're actually friends with me on Facebook, you can PM me there, or you can just shoot me an email. Okay, I'm going to sign off now. Mwah, mwah. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.